Hello, everyone. Welcome into the Bitcoin Made Simple podcast. I am your host, Corey Tusick. And hey, I got two of these out cranked out in a row. Getting in a groove. I appreciate you guys that have been patient with me. A lot of you guys know. I mean, obviously, about me losing my mother-in-law. And so it's just been tough. Um, yeah, I want to talk a little bit about uh the absurdity of how cheap Bitcoin mining can be and how it's eventually going to, I think, move to as many, it's almost close to free as possible resources. I mean, you have to have expenses to get there, but walk with me on this journey. So before you do that, before I get into that, get a BitBox02 hardware wallet. It's the simplest thing you can do to save yourself from the collapse of another FTX. Oh, I don't know, Mt. Gox. I mean, how many of these have we seen? So get yourself a BitBox02 hardware wallet and get your coins off the exchange. You go to bitbox.swiss/Bitcoin made simple. Use promo code Bitcoin made simple to get 5% off your order. Um, so basically, I mentioned to you guys that I left Movies Plus, and I think my main focus from here on out is Bitcoin mining. Um, and he may be listening to this. Old friend Tom from high school, hit me up a couple of months ago and said like, "Hey, some they found the podcast somehow, and him and his brother, who I also knew from high school, were, he said, we're getting really into this, blah, blah, blah. And I, so I told him, I said, well, actually, I'm doing like, getting into Bitcoin mining on natural gas and all that kind of stuff. And he was like, really, um, and so he wanted to see, and so I sent them, like, we're in points where we have some official documents in place. And I said, hey, this is the opportunity that we're currently looking at for natural gas mining. Um, and and what struck me from that, this isn't financial advice. I'm not pitching you guys right now or anything. I'm just saying what struck me is that is Tom's brother came back and he said, is the cost for the general electricity cost, so like a conversion of, you know, like convert, using a generator to convert the gas into electricity, the rate essentially is like a penny. And um and he's like, is this for real? Like, we're really doing, a penny for the penny for energy. And it's like, yeah, I know it's hard to believe. And that just kind of sparked the conversation where, he was going down, like the resources that are in Africa and how it could basically be free, and El Salvador with the volcano mining. Um, so I think that's all, you know, where things are headed. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, I had Huddle Magoo on here, and he was given a bunch of, oh my God, probably 2 years ago. And he was given a bunch of flack to the volcano bonds and whatnot because I think they were tied through tether or some garbage like that. Um, so I'm not talking about those specific mechanisms. I'm just talking about mining off of essentially free energy. Um, the issue is there is a capital requirement to get there. So it's like, yes, the energy that I have secured is basically 1 penny per kilowatt. Um, does that mean that you just show up and plug in your miner? No, because I mean, first of all, there, even at the very bare minimum, there would be the expense of the miners. So how many of them do you want to buy? How many can you plug in? Yada yada. Um, but then the next element of it would be, you know, like that doesn't exist. there's no wall that you can just plug into for 1 cent. Um, and you're going to have some infrastructure around it. Um, but with natural gas, you obviously have to have generators, which is a large portion of the capital expense, the capital expenditure. So, you know, looking at it through that lens, um, it's not free, but companies that are getting into this, and it was funny because they were like, dude, like why would anyone put money in publicly traded mining companies when you could just do this version of mining? And I'm like, yeah, which by the way, shout out to Bob Burnett, who's been on the show multiple times, and working with him on all this stuff. And we've partnered on some things. Like his thesis on the wild horses in Bitcoin mining is so spot on. Um, but the wild horses are going to be the ones that win the race, because he says the elephants are the publicly traded miners that are on grid and have just like ton of resources in a couple places, and they're kind of stuck. They're elephants, they can't move fast. Then there's the bunny rabbits like me that have a miner running in the basement and does that, really impact hash power, not a ton. If I unplug my miner, nobody's going to notice. um, and is it making me a ton of money? No, not really. The wild horses, though, are the ones that could be off grid, the ones that can be mobile, the ones that can move quickly, adapt to the resources at hand. Um, and I think I think the wild horses are winning, and I mean, like my friend and his brother were saying, it's like, why would anyone be doing the publicly traded stuff going forward? Um, I don't know. I don't know why that would be anyone's focus. I think everyone should focus on the wild horses stuff. I mean, I'm not a pitching investment, but if any of you are interested, then hit me up. Send me a DM uh, on on the Twitter. Um, and yeah, the capitalism. This is what's beautiful about capitalism is that capitalism will always move towards the best option. Not always, I guess. Sometimes there's corrupt capitalism, monopolism. Um, but in this true element, when we're not elephants and you can't have a monopoly on the situation, uh, it is, and hash power is just continuing to rip through the roof, regardless of what the mining or what the price of Bitcoin is. Um, and it's just going to keep pushing the envelope, pushing people to find other options, other resources. Um, you know, I even thought I was like, oh, like I have my own situation where I live. I own the natural gas underneath me. Like, oh, how much does it cost to drill down there? I mean, obviously that isn't capital expense. I can't really do at the moment because I just left my company and figuring out what's next in life. But I mean, the simplest things like I look at every time I see a lightning bolt, I think to myself, what a waste. Oh my God, if somebody could have harnessed that electricity, then I mean, it'd be impossible, but just imagine lightning powered Bitcoin mining. Oh my God, find a way to do that. Maybe make like a grid of lightning rods that go so high in the air and stretch throughout the world so that at any time, whenever there is lightning happening, lightning will hit one of the ones on the grid and fill the energy need. That would be kind of interesting. But yeah, It's and now I'm going to get into this. I think the ancient Egyptians might have been onto something. They could have been mining Bitcoin, and they weren't mining Bitcoin, but uh, yeah, it's interesting when you start thinking about how to harness energy, and then you dig deep enough and Tesla and all that kind of stuff. But get a Bitbox02 hardware wallet. Go to bitbox.switch/Bitcoin made simple. Use promo code Bitcoin made simple to get 5% off. Um, I didn't expect to go here in this conversation, but there was a really good episode of Joe Rogan recently, which with Christopher Dunn. I highly recommend you guys check it out. So he was because he his theory was that the pyramids were a power plant essentially. And his theory, I mean, this guy isn't like a quack. Like he's pretty spot on. And the funny thing is that like I've done so much research about them, and a friend that's done way more than I have, who's way smarter than I am. Um, and he even is like has just been like, man, like these pyramids were not tombs. This was something else. Um, and so they, yeah, in the episode, and I got to re-listen to it because I mean it's very heavy. There's a lot to it. Um, Essentially, I'll give you the bullet points. Uh, the king's chamber is up top. The queen's chamber is below. Um, which, first of all, it these pyramids were not built by slaves by hand, and they were not built over a very short period of time using the tools that we know could be possibly have used at the time that they think they were built. So they were probably around a lot longer before that. And used technology to build them that we do not have currently. It's if you haven't gone down this rabbit hole, it's fascinating. Um, Basically, the precision with which the granite stones were cut, uh, absolutely impossible to do that um, in today's standard technology. So there's no way ancient Egyptians could have done it. Um, but anyway, so what most likely happened was that the tombs were found, later after probably some kind of mass extinction, devastation, thousands of years go by. And then these Egyptian pharaohs find them and they're like, this would be a great place to make a tomb. Um, because there's no documentation that they commissioned these tombs to be built. So, anyways, the hypothesis was that the there's channels in there. I mean, these things exist. And this guy is saying, based on science, that it could actually harness microwaves. If they harness the microwaves, then I think they had in the Queen's chamber, they had hydrogen. Then the hydrogen in the microwaves would then create energy that could then be transmitted wirelessly, potentially through the top of the pyramid. Um, in fact, I believe maybe I'm an idiot for saying this, but I remember I think Tesla did experiments at the top of the pyramid and noticed that the radio waves there were um, not like anywhere else he had seen. Uh, and I believe that was like part of how he started to invent, well, began the technology that eventually led to like Wi Fi. Um, but yeah, so, anyways, and then if you look at all of Tesla's energy things, they were all these, essential pyramids that he tried to replicate. Um, and so, anyways, it's just there's energy flowing through everything around us. Once you get a Bitcoin miner, that's the biggest thing that changed whenever I bought a miner was that I looked around and realized that everything had energy potential in it. Even like the trees in my yard. I'm like, I could burn those suckers to generate some heat, to power a generator that would mine Bitcoin. Like I look at one tree and I'm like, man, that's it's probably a tenth of a Bitcoin worth of energy there, or something like that. Um, so the cheap energy will always win, and there will, and as this rat race goes, it will continue to find that cheaper energy, and the wild horses are going to be the ones that can succeed. So, um, that is my rant for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you guys get a Bitbox O2 hardware wallet, and I will talk to you later.